Okay, good morning, everyone. It's time now to start our session. My name is Pierre Flamand. I am the manager of international affairs of the Japan Sanitation Consortium, which is a knowledge hub in the Asia-Pacific region, providing knowledge and good practices in sanitation based on Japan's experience and success stories from other countries. I will be today the on-site moderator for this session. Welcome to this session, which has been prepared and organized by the Asian Development Bank, the Asia-Pacific Water Forum, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and the Japan Sanitation Consortium. This session is part of a series of sessions focusing on the Asia-Pacific region that have been going through this week. This session will consist of 2 presentations at the beginning of the session, and then we will have a long panel discussion with exciting panelists. So, at the current rate of progress with conventional business-as-usual approaches, sanitation for all will not be achieved in this century, while reaching safely managed sanitation services is relegated to an even more distant horizon. A shift in paradigm and new approaches are needed to drastically accelerate access to sanitation and provide safely managed sanitation services, particularly for the poor. This session will focus and explore on how ensuring access to sanitation services for the poor and vulnerable. Poor households have limited funds and may prioritize other expenditures over sanitation, particularly as willingness to pay for this service and understanding the benefits of investing in sanitation are generally low. Even for the motivated ones, the cost of sanitation services can be a major barrier. The poor and vulnerable include also those living in informal settlements, which are usually outside the municipal areas receiving or targeted for sanitation services. This session will look at the different barriers and challenges that prevent the poor from having access to sanitation services. We will hear about innovative approaches such as CWIS, successful initiatives and technical solutions to move towards inclusive and sustainable sanitation services for all. Before I start this session, I would like to remind the online attendees that they will be able to send their question via the Q&A box. Also, on-site attendees will also be provided the opportunity to ask questions at the end of the session. So let's start now our session. We have our first presenter here now in the room with us, who is Brian Arbogast, Director of the Water, Sanitation and Hygiene sector of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Brian leads the foundation's efforts to bring groundbreaking innovation in sanitation technology and new ways to deliver sanitation products and services to people in the developing world. Prior to joining the foundation, Brian was a corporate vice president at Microsoft Corporation. He also served as a senior advisor with the Boston Consulting Group and as a board member of the Northwest Energy Angels and of Water First International. So please, Brian, if you can join me in the room. Thank you.
Thank you, Pierre, and good morning, all. I'm pleased to have the opportunity to kind of help kick off this session and talk about the challenges and the innovations that we're seeing in the sanitation space. I'll first spend a few minutes just setting some context and then speaking about some of the change that we're seeing, both positive and challenging, and then talk a little more about different aspects of innovation. Innovation, of course, not only technical innovation, but innovation in business models, in approaches, in how we actually can assert and support sustainable service delivery. So as we all know, cities are growing rapidly around the world, and that brings excitement. That brings exciting. They become hubs of innovation, of change, of dynamism, but it brings tremendous challenges. And public administrations really struggle with growth. And in so many cities, that growth is unplanned. So keeping up with the basic service requirements that come with that growth and the additional challenges from the growing frequency and severity of climate shocks is a growing challenge for anybody working in service delivery at the city level. So these challenge existing systems But the existing systems, frankly, have not been delivering services to the people that need the most already. So our team focuses on sanitation services, and we know that in the sanitation sector, there's often very, very split mandates. And in fact, in many cases, public services for informal communities have traditionally sat outside anybody's mandate. So in many cities, there's no accountable organization for making sure that non-sewer sanitation, for instance, for the people that aren't connected to the sewers, is present and services are available in the cities. And in many cities, that could be 70, 80, 85% of the city. So traditional models where a utility says, well, only those that are sewer connected are our problem, and where there often isn't any other one, any other entity with the mandate to ensure sanitation services are delivered, is obviously from the starting point a huge challenge. Now, so the challenge is a huge part of the population is not being addressed, but that's typically the most vulnerable. So the folks that are in informal settlements are typically the ones that are getting the least attention from the people with the apparent mandates for service delivery in the city. So as a development partner, it's meant that efforts to engage in this sector for everyone in the development sector, oftentimes the way to engage is through the utilities. If the utilities don't have the mandate, that is a systemic challenge. Now, we are seeing this change as governments are forced to reconcile with a number of things. First, increasingly acute environmental damage that comes as a result of in many cases now more and more frequent climate-driven shocks. Public health crises, whether that's a growing incidence and severity of cholera that we've seen really growing over the last few years, prevalence of poliovirus in wastewater, so we see more and more concerns around public health crises. And of course, we see social unrest. So there are drivers that are forcing cities to take a different approach, to pay more attention to some of these challenges. And governments and other development partners are recognizing the importance of taking a public sector approach to delivering services. We call that Citywide Inclusive Sanitation, CWIS, and really two very important aspects of kind of how CWIS maybe is different than how the sector has engaged in this before. One is really focusing through a lens of service delivery. What should we be doing if our goal is not to build infrastructure, but rather our goal is to make sure that everyone in the city, even the hardest to reach communities, are able to count on safe, equitable, sustainable services. And the second one is really embracing whatever technologies are able to help deliver on that challenge. So inclusive in terms of reaching everyone, inclusive in terms of being open to any technology that will help deliver to that end goal. Now, it's been encouraging to see the momentum around Citywide Inclusive Sanitation, to see that narrative, but more importantly, the actual efforts it takes on the ground to make progress really being developed and being shared across the sector. And you know, the shift is not fast, but it shows what is possible. And we're seeing now is frameworks in which it's easier for city officials to see how can I choose the most cost-effective ways to reach these communities that might have been on nobody's radar in the past. So leaders in the effort are finding ways to reach even informal communities, even those that are using still informal infrastructure, simple systems, single pit latrines. The cities, the regulators, the ministries, and their partners are taking up the challenge in rolling out new models for governing and for financing and new opportunities for formal and informal sanitation workers. I'd say one of the most exciting things over the last couple of years has been more recognition of the importance of sanitation workers. If you haven't seen the presentation, I think it's on the third floor on sanitation workers, I would encourage you to check it out. We now have organizations like the Pan-African Sanitation Actors Association that is really bringing a voice to what has been largely an informal sector that has not had a voice. So some very encouraging things there. In the state of Odisha in India, a lot of focus has been on bringing sanitation providers, professionalizing them, and actually bringing them as key leaders in the transformation from a service sector that nobody was paying attention to, a service sector that is really trying to focus on citywide inclusive results and deliverables. So innovative officials are beginning to clarify mandates for service delivery, incorporating new licensing terms, regulatory requirements, so part of that formalization of the existing workers. They're challenging entrenched sector norms that limit subsidies for connections to sewers. So we have this kind of perverse history where in many cases the only subsidies that have been thought of as thinkable in an urban environment are the connections to sewer systems. Everything that's on plot is considered to be, the responsibility of the homeowner. But from a public health perspective, and from a perspective of wanting to make sure that you're actually reaching everyone, we really need to challenge those assumptions. What will it take to make sure that what's even on plot will work? Our containment toilets that are emptyable, and so we're starting to see different city leaders really engage in that area. Now, on the technology front, everybody knows that upgrading latrines, septic tanks, and building sewers, there are things that we will need to do, but they are insufficient strategies for cities that really require greater protection from pathogens. And that's one of the things that these disease outbreaks really point out. So we know that the demand for new products lags behind what is often slow systems change, and that underlying technology development often takes years. We also know that technological innovation can accelerate systems change by unlocking new opportunities, things that weren't possible before, addressing barriers in ways that haven't been addressed. So I want to finish kind of my opening with a little bit of conversation on some of what we find encouraging in the development of technology. So technology innovation in this space has the opportunity to provide tools that are more resilient at delivering services, and more reliable ways to deliver services, but also more resilient in the face of these shocks. So, for example, the technologies that are, one thing we're seeing with more of a focus on citywide inclusive sanitation is more of a focus on making sure that those communities that aren't connected to sewers have reliable fecal sludge management chains. And what that means is that, that those pits and tanks are being emptied, that the waste is being transported to treatment plants that are actually addressing the need by treating the waste. So some of the technologies that we see that are new, that are exciting, are technologies that are all around being able to treat that waste, the very wet waste, in ways that are cost effective on a small footprint in terms of land, that don't require large acreage of drying beds. We call these omniprocessors. The first omniprocessor that was sold, that was actually acquired by somebody's money other than the Gates Foundation, happened just earlier this year in Cox's Bazar, the Rohingya refugee camp, where fecal sludge management is a massive issue. And so what we now have is this new technology that basically takes the sludge, kills all the pathogens, generates excess electricity, and generates high-quality distilled water as an output. And so it's exciting to start to see these technologies being commercialized. We've been investing in what we call the reinvented toilet through many different development partners around the world, universities from around the world. We are now starting to see community reinvented toilets. So those are the systems that support multiple seats for school toilets, community toilets, public toilets, healthcare facilities, are now actually commercially available in the first 3 countries. So in India, in China, in South Africa, you can now purchase these technologies. These systems basically kill all the pathogens in our waste in a closed loop system that cleans all the water, so that the water that comes back to the toilet for a full flush toilet experience, the water's clear, has no pathogens, has no smell. And these systems introduce new kind of climate co-benefits. For example, they are far more resilient in the face of droughts. They don't need external water to function and to provide such a high quality experience. They are also more resilient in the face of flooding. The pathogens are contained in a system. The pathogens are actually treated in short order. And kind of the most aspirational of our technology portfolio investments is in the household reinvented toilet. And that's a single seat with, in effect, attached to an appliance that treats all of the waste coming out of that toilet with no need for downstream treatment, no sewer lines, no septic tanks. And again, very exciting, not only to deliver the public health benefits and the dignity benefits of a toilet within your own home, but also the climate co-benefits. These systems do not generate significant greenhouse gases, unlike, frankly, almost every other approach we know to providing sanitation services. And again, treat the waste, so the challenges in terms of facing droughts, facing floods, significant benefits in resilience. So those are some ways that, that we see exciting advances on the technological front, but we also see kind of exciting opportunities to significantly innovate in the systems side. So one area, a couple areas that we are spending more of our focus and more of our attention with partners are investing in what we think of as critical but chronically underinvested soft infrastructure areas. The first one is in strong regulatory environments. So regulatory systems that really shape the market incentives that drive accountability, whether that's drive accountability of the utilities, the municipalities that are now getting the mandates for delivering services to everyone. And the second area would be in public data systems that are required. Not just, we might have first started looking into a data system for how do we get much better data for SDG 6.2. Because we're many years in, it's hard to get the data on what really, how are we doing against the safely managed toilets challenge. But the more we looked into it, the more we realized that all of these providers at city level, so many of them do not have the systems that they need to make day-to-day decisions that help them cost effectively reach more people, increase their reach, and truly deliver on citywide inclusive sanitation. So we're now working with partners to try to better understand what those systems need to look like and how to close those gaps. So I want to stop there. I want to provide my thanks to ADB and JICA for helping to organize this session around what's such an important conversation, and I look forward to what looks to be a very interesting panel. So thank you.
Thank you, Brian, for your inspiring speech and talking points, very important, very comprehensive. Our next speaker will be Mr. G. Ashok Kumar, who is currently Director General for the National Mission for Clean Ganga, Ministry of Jal Shakti from the Government of India. Mr. Kumar has previously served as the Mission Director for the National Water Mission, where his inspiring work in Jal Shakti Abhiyan, Catch the Rain campaign, led him to receive the popular moniker, the Rain Man of India. In 2002, as a district collector in Nizamabad, he supported the construction of over 140,000 household toilets in 1,000 schools and ensured drinking water supply access to over 3 million residents of Hyderabad in 2008. So Mr. Kumar is going to join us online. Mr. Kumar, please.
Thanks for the nice introduction. I'm very happy to join in this session, and let me first of all congratulate the organizers, the Asia Pacific Water Forum, ADB, Melinda Gates Foundation, JC, for taking this issue on breaking the business as usual and sanitation innovations in Asia Pacific. We were also a part of the Kumamo Declaration when we visited Kumamo with the minister and then signed the Kumamo Declaration reaffirming water's critical importance, reduce disaster risk, achieve multiple SDGs and strengthen the transboundary cooperation, etc. Let me take first two slides to tell about the Namami Gange program, which is one of the flagship programs of the country, and it also has been recognized as one of the flagship programs of the world by the UN. This is the Ganga, about 2,525 kilometers long, with about 1 million square kilometer area basin, with 11 states and 100 basin cities. And you can see that it also accommodates about 43% of India's huge population. India is currently the largest country with the largest population, and this basin accounts for about 43% of the population. So this is a very integrated river rejuvenation mission with a holistic approach and working on the pollution abatement, improving ecology and flow, and strengthening river people connect. So as I mentioned, there are 5 main pillars of this program. One is the Nirmal Ganga, or the unpolluted river, and second is the Aviral Ganga, or the ecology and free flow. Third is the Jan Ganga, people's participation, and fourth is about the knowledge-based Gyan Ganga, and the fifth, the most important, the capstone is about Ardha Ganga, the river people connect. And we have all sanctioned about 442 projects with about $4.5 billion US. And some of the achievements, accolades we have received it, as I mentioned, this was recognized as one of the top 10 eco-restoration programs of the world. And we also participated in the UN Water Conference, where a lot of issues were discussed. And in the last 8 years of work, we have actually improved a lot of pollution stretches in the River Ganga. And you can see in many of the stretches which were categorized as category 3, 2, and all, has now been reduced to category 5, which is the least polluted sector. And this is actually also reflected in the increased improvements in biodiversity. We have increased the count of dolphins from about 2,000 to about 4,000 in the last 4-5 years. We have increased the presence of Indian major carp fishes, which actually thrives on fresh water and good water. So these are indications that the quality of water has improved in the river. And now coming to the topic, so delivering sanitation to all under Namami Ganga, which is a goal under the SDG 6.2. So the Nirmal Ganga part of it is the most important theme or pillar as far as this program is concerned. We have built about 193 projects to create 6,029 million liter daily treatment capacity, and also laid about 5,221 kilometers sewer network. Also 5 CETPs, major CETPs, to ensure that the industrial effluent is not degrading the river. Now, this is a huge mega projects with the usual big STPs, and I'll tell you what are the other innovations we have done. These are some of the pictures of the STPs which we have constructed in Dinapur, 114 MLD, 50 in Ramana, 58 MLD in Moradabad, and 16 MLD in Halishahar. And we have actually now changed this approach to this STP. We are trying to make it more aesthetically looking good. So we have actually made it colorful and renamed this STP as Nirmal Jal Kendra, which is a Hindi word for pure water. And this is to attract people and make them understand what is happening in the STP, so that they also feel part of it. I'll play a 2-minute video on that. Can you play that video now? Okay, that was a video, and you have seen how we have transformed the existing monstrous-looking STPs to very friendly areas, so that people can also come and see and become part of it. Now, we also made some innovations in the business model. It also one is the hybrid annuity model, which actually spreads the available resources and also ensures that the STPs constructed are run. This was one of the major challenges we faced, because many times the STPs which were built were not operated, and hence the outcome was not there. So in this hybrid annuity model, we only pay 40% of the capital cost when the project, when the STPs are completed, and the concessionaire runs it for 15 years, and he gets the payment of the remaining for 60%, and also the O&M only if they meet the key performance indicators we mentioned. So here we ensure that the output of the STPs are as per the parameters specified, and also that they are run regularly. And we also now introduce the audit of the sludge formed, as well as on the chlorine used for fecal coli, for reduction of the fecal coli as part of the maintenance programs. We also came out with the one city, one operator model, where the STPs of a city, all STPs are operated at one operator, avoid the blame game. We have also given in IBRDA loan guarantee from the World Bank for the operators, even though the sovereign guarantee is there. This is an additional guarantee for the concessionaires, that they will be paid by the World Bank if there's a default of India, which never happens. But then that's an added cushion for them. We also have given incentive for the cities to participate as a performance-based incentive program. We are also taking them board on various new innovative actions and governance models they bring in. So, and very importantly, we have started this urban river management plans, which I'll come to later. So these are, and this is one of the important programs which we started by the Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi when on 2014, he launched the Swachh Bharat mission of building toilets. And India at that time had large area or large sector of people without access to the toilets. So on the 2nd October 2014, he launched the Swachh Bharat mission, and on 2nd October 2019, India was declared open defecation free, with almost 100 million toilets constructed under the Gramin Swachh Bharat. And we are now towards this next phase, of the phase 2 of the Swachh Bharat mission, the ODF plus India. Under the Namami Gange, we also have taken up about 1,602 villages, and in the states, and about 1.2 million toilets were constructed, and these villages were declared open defecation free. Now, coming to the innovations and technology, yes, as the previous speaker mentioned, innovations and technology is very important. We are looking for a technology which has low footprint, easy maintenance, and energy efficient, and also easily to maintain. We can also get people's participation. So that's why we are now pushing for a decentralized treatment technology, and we have signed an MOC with the Ministry of Japan to push the JOCASO model, which is being now taken up in a very serious way. And small parks and small housing communities has been encouraged to take up this JOCASO model, which is now getting popular in India. We also have this decentralized, as I mentioned, water nature-based solutions also are being promoted. FSTPs have been taken up in big way with the help of the BMGF, also is partnering with us. And many of the STPs which are constructed, we are also now making co-treatment facilities so that the infrastructure created can be used more efficiently. We are also pushing forward the nature-based solution, the constructed wetlands in many places, and also bioremediation projects. These are all projects which are merging with the nature and also involving the local communities. So this is where we have got a good success in some of the areas. It has to be picked up now. So this trust is being now given for these decentralized nature-based solutions. And another very important initiative which took was the very radical move with the launch of this Ardha Ganga by the Honorable Prime Minister. and the thrust on the monetization and reuse of treated water and sludge. We have come out with the national framework for the safe use of treated water and established Center of Excellence with partnership with Cherry for using this treated water for non-potable purposes, and signed MOU with Ministry of Power, Ministry of Railways, Ministry of Agriculture, etc. for actually using this water. So Ministry of Power has tied up with us for about 24 thermal power plants to use this treated water from our STPs. We also have now focusing on better use of sludge. Sludge to be used for as a soil conditioner, sludge to use as a natural fertilizer, and also generate power from sludge, the green power from the sludge, and also biogas. We are also planning to run CNG based vehicles from the gas generated from these sludges. So a very, very big trust has been given. This tertiary treatment in Madura today supplies about 10 ml water to the oil refinery in Mathura. And another very important initiative we have taken is the River City Alliance. This is a very interesting, innovative idea where we launched with about 30 member cities in 2021, has now grown into about 150 plus cities. Many foreign countries and the cities have now taken interest in this joining us. Basically, the idea you have river as one of a growth engine for the economic growth engine of the town and cities, and also change the mindset of the urban planners to move the river as a dumping ground or as a sewage disposal channel to a much more place of entertainment, for a place for aesthetics and place for better economic resources. So that's one thing which has been very, very catching up from in various parts of the world. This River City Alliance, we had also presented that in the World Water Conference, and many countries have joined our interest. And we have also had a RCA Global Seminar on 4th May, where a lot of people participated. In this process, we are actually preparing urban river management plan with the 10 trust areas. 6 are related to environment, 2 are related to economic activities, and 2 are related to the social aspects. And many cities we are planning to take up this urban river management plans. About 60 would be taken up in the next 1 year. So if you notice, this is now media is also covering. We are suggested that urban flooding and etc. can be tackled by proper URMP, and that's what this article says about waning solutions. Another very important thing is all these activities which we do, we have to ensure that it's properly monitored, because otherwise, if the monitoring is not done, it is not accounted for. So PRAG is the monitoring center platform which we have established, and all 175 STPs are monitored on a real-time basis in our office here. And last slide, the people participation. So we look at for people's participation. All technology which we look for is to have people joining us, and also, as I mentioned, it requires low footprint, easy maintenance, and also energy efficient. Thanks for the opportunity given for making the presentation on Ganyua here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. G. Asokuma, for this very impressive undertaking for the National Mission for Clean Ganga. That was very impressive. And thank you also for using the Japanese technology, Jokaso. Next, I would like now to turn to our online moderator, who is Ms. Mitzi Borromeo, for the question to the panelists. Mitzi is a media and communication specialist with over 2 decades of experience in the sector. She was previously an award-winning broadcast journalist with CNN Philippines. And among her current projects, she is a director, executive producer, and screenwriter of Mind S School TV, the top-rated family TV show in the Philippines. So, Mitzi, yes.
Hello, Pierre. Hi, great to join you here from Manila. Thank you for inviting me to be a moderator. It's a pleasure to be with you here again and to learn from what's sure to be a very enlightening and enriching exchange. So let me begin by introducing the panelists before we hear from each of them. So we have 4 panelists with us today. We are joined by Kate Medlicott, who is the sanitation team leader within the Water, Sanitation and Hygiene, or WASH team at the World Health Organization in Geneva, Switzerland. Her work involves translating health evidence to policy and practice through WHO guidelines and for health sector collaborations, where sanitation is a critical component of risk and disease control, such as antimicrobial resistance, or AMR, neglected tropical diseases, or NTDs, and wastewater surveillance. She also sits on the committee that oversees quality of all WHO guidelines. Also with us today is Patrick T. He is the chief regulator of the Metropolitan Waterworks and Sewerage System Regulatory Office in the Philippines. His innovative approach to regulation has resulted in remarkable achievements or improvements in water, sewerage, and sanitation coverage in the concession areas. His dedication to public service and exceptional leadership have earned him numerous accolades. Attorney T is also a member of the IWA Inclusive Urban Sanitation Initiative Advisory Board. The IWA, or International Water Association, is the largest membership association for the global water sector. Another panelist joining us today is V. Srinivas-Chari. Professor Chari is the director of the Center for Urban Governance, Environment, Energy and Infrastructure Development at the Administrative Staff College of India, or ASCI. He is also the director of the Center of Excellence in Urban Development at ASCI. Professor Chari is an urban environmental planner and public health engineer with over 2 decades of experience in urban infrastructure services, governance reforms, and equity. He specializes in water and environmental sanitation, or WASH services in urban areas. And our 4th panelist today is Genevieve Kelly. She is program director for the Partnership for Better Living, or PBL, a 5-year, $10 million cooperative agreement between USAID and Lixil to support SATO's expansion to new markets in Africa, Asia, and Latin America. Genevieve brings more than a decade of experience in strategy design, implementation, and documentation of innovative approaches for sanitation product and service delivery in emerging markets in Africa and Asia. So we're sure to hear a lot of knowledge and enriching insights and experiences from them. Now, I'd like to remind you all, as Pierre mentioned earlier to our audience, if you could kindly type in your questions into the chat box as you hear our panelists today. Please do type them into the chat box and include your name, your institution or affiliation, also the name of the speaker to whom your question is addressed. So we expect a lively discussion today. So let's begin. I'll address the first question to Kate Medlicott. Hi, Kate. Thanks for being here today. Kate, WHO is one of the main organizations measuring the progress on household access to sanitation. Could you briefly speak about the situation with the access to sanitation services for the poor and marginalized, and also mention what are the main challenges of measuring progress on access to sanitation or on poorer populations? Kate?
Thank you. Is this microphone? Yes, it is working. Thanks, everyone. Yeah, so, well, you heard my bio. In fact, I'm not the data person at WHO. I do all of the kind of norm stuff, but I will try and say a little bit about our data work on behalf of the JMP and GLASS teams. And when, well, we're talking about innovation, and I think it's, 7 years into the SDGs, it's actually kind of amazing to reflect that 7 years ago, we were just like measuring access to toilets, levels of open defecation. Now we have an indicator that does safely managed sanitation. It looks at the full service chain, everything that we see in a SFD. So I think that in itself has been a huge innovation in the way sanitation is monitored and the way we look at the sector. If you go into the JMP database now, you will see that there are safely managed sanitation estimates broken down by service type, by sewer, by septic tank and by pit latrines, and for most countries in the world now there is data coming in there. But we also have like huge challenges, and I think the JMP would be the first to talk about some of the challenges of monitoring that, particularly for vulnerable populations. So we see that for safely managed sanitation, we have massive data gaps on on-site sanitation and what's measured. It doesn't catch a lot of the things that we care about in terms of the risks. So, for example, if a pit's never emptied, it's actually classified as safely managed, where I think many of us in the sector know that a pit not being emptied is not necessarily a measure of safety. But I think for me the really exciting part is then we look at how we monitor the back ends of the sanitation chain, so what's happening in transport, treatment. You can't get that information from those traditional data sources, which are household surveys. We have to start looking at building up public data systems and particularly regulatory data systems. So now we're not just talking about data for kind of global comparison, global data for kind of international decision making or measurement of progress, but we're actually talking about data for national systems to drive national progress. And I think that is kind of the obvious but really exciting transition that we're in the middle of now, and particularly making sure that we have a space between the service provider data and the regulatory data, which is kind of verified. Just before I stop, just a few kind of quick things that are really on the agenda to try and catch better with global data. So gender disaggregation is super important, trying to work towards climate resilience, trying to link coverage data with health outcome data, and I think getting to shocks, right? Because the JMP data kind of looks at trends over time, but we don't within that see, oh, what was the impact of COVID, for example, because all of those things get sort of smoothed out in those models. There's so much I could say, but I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kate. A lot there, definitely a lot we really have to take in. As we've heard from our speakers earlier, there's so much that's been neglected, not given enough attention. And this is what we really need to look into if we want to go beyond business as usual. So let's go over now to Attorney Patrick T. In the Philippines. So Patrick, the Philippines has led strong efforts to ensure that everyone has access to sustainable sanitation services. But this requires robust regulation of the service providers. Could you tell us about the main measures that your company, the MWSS, has taken to strengthen service provision in informal settlements? And could you also talk about the main challenges so far, Patrick?
Yeah, thank you again. Thank you for the question, Mitsita, and hi to everyone from Manila. Just to give a quick background, very quick background, water and wastewater services in Metro Manila has been privatized since 1997. So it's the private sector who's providing this service and no government subsidy at all. So we have a principle here in Metro Manila. We're in the polluter pays principle. So the government will not subsidize or pay for the providing sanitation services to people or all the residents in Metro Manila. So what we do is we have these two water concessionaires. It's called Manila Water and Maynilad. And part of their service is providing these water and wastewater services. However, before, it was really difficult to provide these services because nobody wants to avail of it. Nobody wants to avail of having their septic tanks dislodged or connecting to a sewerage line because you have to pay for it. So what we did a few years ago is that we implemented an environmental charge wherein we incorporated the expense of wastewater services to the water bill. So there's now just a one water bill where you need to pay a percentage of your water bill as the environmental charge. This way, there is no additional fees for you to avail of the dislodging services. This is very important because the water is heavily subsidized. So that means those who are in the low-income households are now going to be subsidized as well. So they don't need to pay for the dislodging services. If you call for a dislodging truck to dislodge your septic tanks at home, you don't need to pay any additional cost. It's already part of your water bill. You can do this once every 5 years. These services at no additional cost. And again, this is heavily subsidized by the heavy water users, normally which are the industrial, commercial, and more affluent households. So that's how they were able to achieve more or less a citywide inclusive sanitation. However, we are encountering problems, the problems such as the low availment rate, because even if there is no additional charge and for these services, we have a problem right now of people availing of these services because of lack of knowledge, lack of indifference, and sometimes as well as difficulty to access the septic tanks, including they don't even know sometimes where these septic tanks are located. So that's one of the difficulties that we're having in getting availing of this dislodging services and having a higher penetration rate. Right now, I think the availment rate is around 60%. So that's why what we are doing right now is we are trying to increase sewer coverage because we are migrating already to a combined sewerage system. So there will be no more direct connection to the households for sewer lines. And also, the combined sewerage system is actually cheaper. So, and this will basically collect the wastewater from the overflows from the sanitation, from the septic tanks of the households. So hopefully that this will solve the problem. However, we are still at a dismal 25% sewer coverage rate right now. And that's why we are trying to fast track this rollout of the sewer lines in the next few years. In fact, that's one of the major projects of the two concessionaires. They are required to do a rapid rollout of these sewer lines in order for us to attain a higher sewer coverage. So that's one of the things that we are trying to do right now. And as for my office, what we are doing is we are tying up with the local government units, the local barangays. These are the smallest local government units that are basically on the ground. We try to partner with them for them to be the one to coordinate with the households to convince them to avail of these dislodging services. Because a lot of times, again, because of lack of knowledge, lack of education, they don't know that they need to have their septic tanks dislodged. So the barangay now, the local barangays are the one that will talk to these people and convince them and inform them, hey, there's a sludge dislodging services scheduled for in next week. Please avail of it. And because of that, we also encourage our partners to partner with us by providing them recognition, by awarding them the best barangays wherein there is going to be a highest availment rate. So that's how we are doing things right now in Metro Manila. Back to you, Ms.
Thank you very much, Patrick. Indeed, what you mentioned there, it is key when it comes to really changing paradigms, changing mindsets. It's really working at the local level, grassroots level, and that's part of education, giving them a sense of ownership, empowering them. Thank you. Let's move on now. I'd like to direct this question to Professor Chari. Professor Chari, your institute, the Administrative Staff College of India, or ASCI, has been a very important proponent of CWIS, not only in South Asia, but globally. How can CWIS contribute to improving access to sanitation services from the poor? And could you tell us how, from your experience, how can these services be financed?
Thank you, Ms. Mitzi, and hello all. I would give example of India and then extrapolate some of these learnings for South Asia as well as from global context. So I think many of us know, and Mr. Ashok Kumar also articulated that India Honorable Prime Minister started this Clean India mission and sometime in 2014-15. Concurrently, India also embraced what we call Citywide Inclusive Sanitation approach, focusing on equity, safety, and sustainability. Now, thanks to the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, ADBI, Japanese Sanitation Coalition, they're all been a part of this advocacy for promoting citywide inclusive sanitation for accelerating SDG 6. Now, what are the big changes that we saw? What are the big sanitation innovations that really positively impacted the poor as part of the citywide inclusive sanitation in India? I would narrate about 2-3 of such examples, and these are very, very powerful. Number one, sanitation was always is a public health issue, but it was not perceived as a public service. It was considered as a private affair. So how to build toilets, how to desludge it, how to take care of it. But with the citywide inclusive sanitation approach being taken up in multiple states and geographies in India now, the sanitation is now considered through a regulatory frameworks, through policy directions, is now clearly defined as a public service. It is a municipal function, which was outside the remit of a municipal service delivery. Unlike in the many other countries, we don't have the utility structures, we have municipal structure, and now sanitation is now delivered by municipalities as a very critical responsibility for ensuring public health. Now, there was no clear responsible entity within the municipal system, like municipal solid waste management. There's a very clear department for delivering municipal solid waste management, but sanitation was falling between cracks. So now the state of Telangana and many states like Andhra Pradesh and few other states, we have what is called environmental sanitation department, clearly accountable for achieving services to the poor, services in terms of monitoring, in terms of delivery, in terms of financing. So there's a very clear responsible entity to deliver. So that's a big change, I would say, as part of the CWIS approach. The second important change, I would say, is what is called accountability of these service delivery agencies. How do you ensure that these service delivery agencies are accountable? Now, this is where a very interesting movement of civil society organizations coming together, creating platforms, both self-help groups in the low-income communities as well as the middle and high-income communities. We call them as CSOs, civil society organizations, are really organizing themselves for sanitation to make the service delivery organizations accountable. They're also introducing what is called report card system, social audit tools to make the service delivery organizations accountable. So I think the second important change is that accountability relationships have been a very significant improvement, I would see. And this is, I think, is a significant contribution of CWIS approach. The third important thing that I would say, this is very, very important, dear to us, is the promotion of transformative technologies for inclusive sanitation. The technologies are always perceived to be for rich, for middle class, for those who can afford. These are big STPs, which are basically connecting only the high-end population where they have sewer systems, whereas the CWIS approach actually promoted what is called transformative technologies, frugal solutions, and business models for low-income settlements, slums, and so on and so forth. For example, now schools, we are now promoting Jocasso as a decentralized model for school sanitation, not only provide toilets, but also make sure the wastewater coming out of these toilets are properly recycled, treated and recycled for horticulture, for garden applications, and so on and so forth. So the transformative technologies for inclusive sanitation is a big contribution of citywide inclusive sanitation. For example, Brian also mentioned about hospitals, institutions, reinventing toilets coming into this space. I think this is going to be the game-changing idea. To promote this, we started what is called WASH Innovation Hub, primarily to promote transformative technologies for ensuring that the sanitation is not just for the rich or the middle class, but the sanitation can also be delivered to the marginalized communities by introducing what is called the frugal, completely transformative reinventing toilet programs. This is another big idea that is now progress in India. It's a work in progress. Now, the question is, how do you finance all these ideas, particularly for low-income communities? So we are looking at, in fact, Government of India and various state governments are very generous in terms of prioritizing sanitation, inclusive sanitation. But over and above that, I would say many states like states of Telangana and a few other states, now we are introducing what is called outcome subsidies. We are introducing blended financing model where both corporate social responsibility, impact investments, as well as the public sector fund are combined to ensure that the sanitation reaches the poor. And these services are climate resilient because many a times a simple shock of heavy rainfall, a simple shock of drought will really destabilize the sanitation infrastructure and services. So some of these solutions have to be climate resilient, and this is a work in progress through WASH Innovation Hub. So these are some of the sanitation innovations, I would say, are really helping India to move towards SDG in a very accelerated way. And some of these examples can be taken to South Asia and also globally. Thank you very much. And I would stop, and if there are questions, we will take.
Thank you very much, Professor Cherry. Very important there, what you mentioned on accountability. That's really something that keeps everyone on their toes. And what you mentioned on technology, it's true. A lot of people think that technology is only for the rich. So it's wonderful to see these examples in India of really making it inclusive and really bringing sanitation to those who need it most. Now, let me bring in Genevieve now. Genevieve there in Stockholm. Sato is a very important solution provider for affordable water and sanitation solutions. Would you tell us about some of the technology options to ensure sanitation access to the poor living, specifically in informal settlements? And what have been the main challenges when delivering this type of systems? Genevieve?
Great, thank you, Mitzi. First, I'm actually going to turn the question back on the audience quickly and do a quick poll. So I'm going to share with you two statements, statement A, statement B, and I'm going to ask you to pick one. You can only pick one. Oh, thank you for the lights. So I'll read two statements, and then we'll vote. So statement A, the appropriate technology solutions to address sanitation in informal settlements exist. We just need to find ways to scale them. So the technology exists, statement A. Statement B, the technology solutions to address informal settlements do not yet exist, so we need to innovate. So, do not exist, need to innovate. You have to pick one of these. So I'm going to start with statement A, and please raise your hand, and please don't pick neither. Statement A, the solutions exist, and now we need to scale them. Ooh, okay. And now statement B, the technology solutions do not yet exist, we need to innovate. Okay. Did I get any double voting? For those who might not be able to see in the room, I would say most people picked statement A, that the technologies exist and we need to scale them. Fortunately, because it is my question, I get to cheat and choose statement C, which is that both are correct. We have so many options and technologies that exist that we need to scale, but also there's further innovation that's needed. So at Sato, part of Lixil, we have a consumer-centric product portfolio that we use to complement other technology options in the sanitation environment to address these pretty unique challenges of informal settlements. And so we recognize that there is this continued need to innovate while also continuing to adapt and iterate with the products that we have. So I'll start by describing Lixil's approach to product design and talking about our core values around affordability and acceptability, but also how we link these to that broader ecosystem that Brian set up so well in his opening remarks in terms of linking to products and services. And I think every panelist since has already touched on that full value chain and the need to think about that broader ecosystem. And to clarify, I'll be presenting from my perspective, which is from Lixil and our products and services, but I hope you'll find that the design principles that I'm describing are relevant to a whole variety of technologies. So firstly, thinking about that approach. So in terms of informal sediments, we've already discussed many of the challenges, but thinking perhaps specifically in some of the urban settings, we know that these are characterized by highly densely populations, informal economies, lack of infrastructure, transient populations, and typically low income. All of these have direct implications for solutions, and we must account for all of these if we are to achieve impact at scale. So again, to emphasize, at Lixil, we have this consumer-centric product design approach. And so we are looking to ensure that our products are affordable, acceptable, and appropriate, and that they enable safely managed sanitation. Sato began 10 years ago with our Sato pen. I'm sure many of you are familiar with it. It's our simple, low-cost, yet effective solution that can retail for as little as $4, enabling millions of people to access basic sanitation. Leveraging the scale of the Sato Pan, we've been able to expand our portfolio to a suite of products that can complement each other and work with other technology solutions in the market, including the Sato Stool, the recently launched Sato Slab. We have the pit liner upcoming, as well as solutions for offset single and twin pits, our I-trap and V-trap. A key design element that we have to consider here is, well, two key design elements are cost and then the market ecosystem in which our products operate. So in terms of cost, we really emphasize our products being lightweight, compact, durable, easy to transport, as well as consider minimal packaging. So easy to transport and able to withstand long, bumpy journeys, perhaps, and then navigating small spaces without a lot of packaging. And I raise this because every dollar makes a difference for our target consumer. And so differences in pricing and packaging and how many units we can fit in a box or on the back of a motorbike really can make a difference in the price and the ability for one of our consumers to afford the product. And how that links, of course, to today's focus in terms of informal settlements is that a lot of these challenges around cost and transport are really exacerbated in these settings. Again, with this lack of adequate space, infrastructure to move products in and around communities, it becomes ever more important that we're focusing on some of these design elements. We need to consider not just how effectively our technology then contains the waste, and I'll touch more a little bit on containment in a moment, but also how the product physically gets to the household in the first place. And so when we think about, again, designing, we think of the lack of skilled masons or plumbers who may eventually install the products. So we want to emphasize them being quick and easy to install. We think about durability and the need for long-term solutions and products that can withstand, being installed by perhaps unskilled labor, but then also that they can last for many years to come. And as we know, despite a ton of effort to expand city services and those shared by my fellow panelists, many of these communities will live in these settings for possibly generations. Getting back to containment, of course, we don't have the luxury of time and space to protect us from pathogens. And so I think uniquely in these settings, we need to ensure that our products are addressing safely managed sanitation from the moment of installation. We can't install a pit and come up with a plan later, or perhaps even, never plan to empty it and call it safely managed. And so we really need to think about how we are containing fecal contamination at the source. And so again, at Lixil, in terms of what we're doing, we are looking at a number of technologies, and there's some great ones that exist that are catered to the informal sediment context, and including container-based solutions, simplified sewers. We at Lixil are already, or have been in discussions with the Container-Based Sanitation Alliance to see how we can support technology innovation in that area. But also what we have now, as I mentioned briefly, is the upcoming pit liner. And what's neat about this is that it provides structure to a pit, but it can do so in a modular way. And so the pieces can be assembled on site and for varying diameters or heights to adapt to the space constraints that we see in these contexts. Importantly, for Southern Asia, Southeast Asia, these cultures, we know that water for cleansing is really important, and so our products are pore flush, but also require very little water relative to a lot of the alternatives on the market, which makes these contexts where you might not have running water, it makes it easier to have a culturally appropriate solution. We also have a urine diverting product under development, and so hopefully, if we're back here next year, we can share a bit more on that. So just to kind of on the containment point close, I think we're really trying to emphasize the importance of in our design, ensuring structural integrity of containment, reducing volumes, reducing liquid volumes, such that then, as this links to the broader sanitation value chain, we can ensure that waste can be safely removed, transported, and eventually getting to treatment. So I'll close there just with an emphasis on the points kind of tying back to the beginning of the conversation, which is we do have great technology that we really need to scale, but then we also really do need new innovations for how we can link all these different technologies and how we can leverage our partnerships to work together so that all the different pieces that we're developing within our organizations, it can complement each other towards safely managed sanitation in these cities.
Thank you, Genevieve. Everything you've said just reminds us of the importance of partnership and collaboration, which is why sessions like these are very important. So now it's time for the questions. We're seeing a lot of questions coming into the chat, a very active audience here. Thank you very much. Pierre, please feel free to step in if there are questions coming in there from Stockholm. So I'll start maybe with one question to our panelists. Perhaps I'll start, we're getting a lot of questions from Govinda Rajrokai. I'll start with more on the international level before I go to his more regional question. Govinda asks, the low-income countries are unlikely to meet SDG targets for sanitation due to not having priority for sanitation, not having or allocating sufficient budget for sanitation, having low level of capacity. What are the priorities of international agencies such as the WHO, ADB, Gates Foundation? What are the priorities in this regard? Perhaps I'll address that to Kate. Let's start with you.
Okay, gosh, that's a big question, but it's really true. You see that these rates have changed. I think a couple of years ago we were saying we need to work 4 times faster. Now the latest report says we have to work 6 times faster to meet the SDGs. So it's clear, yeah, we're not going to hit these goals. There's a lot of priorities, but I just want to touch on kind of 2 things that we're prioritizing. Like first is around regulation. If you look at the latest GLASS report, it shows really clearly the countries that have a regulator who's doing their job, they're making faster rates of progress. And we're here today talking about the Asian region, and actually many Asian countries don't have a regulator. So we want to really focus on working with regulators, clarifying mandates and accountability mechanisms between regulators and service providers, because the evidence seems to show that that is key to driving more rapid progress. And then I think a second area, we're talking today about innovation, and I think there's a lot of focus and financing towards innovation of technology, innovation of business models, but I think we also need to be looking at innovation in the management and the workforce that supports all of this. And we're moving from what has largely been kind of within the realms of households or not necessarily professionalized services. And when I say professionalized, I mean either the public and or private sector, but men and women who are doing jobs at all levels in the system, whether it's the ministry, the municipality, within businesses, to have enough people and people who know their jobs and are well capacitated to do them. So I think we really have to put a lot more emphasis on the workforce. So yeah, those 2 things, regulation and active management with a highly qualified workforce.
Thank you, Kate. I have some questions here for Patrick. I'll ask the 2 questions, Patrick, and you can respond to them. They're very much related. So from Stefan Reuter from the German Water Partnership, how do you roll out sewer systems with no household connection? And what do you mean by combined sewer? What are you combining? And the second question, you talked about the polluters pay mechanism. So this is from Purbasanj Mokhtan. Does the polluters pay include the poorest quintile of society or the city? How are they included? Patrick?
Okay, thanks for the question. For the combined system, basically it's we combine both domestic sewage and storm water using the existing drainage system. So we're taking advantage of the existing drainage system and use diverters to divert the wastewater to the sewage treatment plants. This is used by other countries as well. And this is actually very new. Previously, it's the majority of the previous iterations of sewerage system is a direct sewerage system, wherein there's going to be a direct line from the households to the sewage treatment plants, and the storm drains are also a separate line. But this, in the combined system, we basically combine both. That's how we sort of save some money and save time. Of course, there are some pros and cons for this one, but the basic reason for this one is it is more cost efficient, and most countries right now are actually switching to the combined system. For your second question, it's basically what we do in the MWSRO. We set the tariff rates of the two concessionaires, and we do this during a regular basis. And during this regular basis, we have to make sure that the water and wastewater remains affordable. So basically, we have to make sure that the average monthly water and sanitation or sewerage bills of each households are within the 5% limit provided by the UN Human Rights Commission. That the monthly water bill should not exceed 5% of their average monthly household income. So that's how we compute and make sure that it remains affordable, because the normally low-income households consume less water. So that means those who are in the lower consumption band will be heavily subsidized by those who are consuming more. That's how we are able to provide the proper services to the low-income households without sacrificing services.
Thank you, Patrick. Thank you very much. I have a question now here for Genevieve. Genevieve, this is also from Govinda Raj Rokaya. Govinda asks, we have already tested the Sato range of products, and they have been found to be very effective, as Sato range of products are now produced in Bangladesh and India. While importing these products from Bangladesh and India, there has been a big cost for customers, for customs duty and other taxes, which increase the cost of these products. Do you have plans to ensure these products are available at affordable costs, perhaps in Nepal as well? Genevieve?
Yeah, thank you for the question. I can touch on a couple of points here. Quickly on Nepal, I would say yes, Nepal is a market that Sato is actively exploring, and so more to come, and would love to get in touch to see how we could explore in that space. And on the point on customs import duties, absolutely, that is a challenge, I think, especially when, I give the example of a $4 toilet, VAT and things like that can really dramatically increase the price relative to the cost of the product itself. I might just take this opportunity to give a plug for the Partnership for Better Living, which is the project that I'm actually the director of. So within the Sato team, so this is a partnership between USAID and Lixil. It is a 5-year, $10 million cooperative agreement, and one of the efforts that we have undertaken is how can we import products trying to both get duty exemptions to make them more affordable in the markets where they are being imported, as well as longer term, how can we advocate to governments to make exceptions on import duties for products that kind of have this social impact element, such as sanitation products. And so that's something I would say the project, maybe that's a temporary solution, but long term, looking to advocate to governments and working with partners. PSI has been a huge, has really led a lot of this work in Ethiopia in terms of how we can look for long-term solutions to keep costs down.
Thank you, Genevieve. And a follow-up related to that first question, also to what you said now. Does Lixil have any plan to ensure the availability of these products at the same cost, even in rural areas? So cost question here.
Yeah, I mean, I would just point you back to our design principles, which is we strive to make products as affordable as we can, and we're constantly iterating on that and looking at how we can bring those costs down and thinking about costs of transport and logistics. Can our products nest together to reduce those transportation costs? I mean, I think inevitably the further a product has to travel, there are costs associated with that. And so our effort is to from the start, minimize those. And then we're never really done. We're always iterating and taking feedback on how we can. But I think that also just ties kind of to that scale element. The more we can consolidate demand, the more we can work with partners or leverage other partners' supply chains, we can get products to rural areas, last mile delivery, more efficiently without passing that cost on to the consumer.
Thank you, Genevieve. Pierre, are we hearing or seeing any comments or questions from there?
Yes, we have a question here from the audience, so please, if you can introduce yourself and maybe your organization, and please use the mic, please.
My name is Dibaluk. I come from Bangladesh. I work for an organization called DSK. My supplementary question to representatives from SATO, whether can you think of a franchising model, because it will be little lengthy to go for you to the places where you are not present. So if you allow your specification, design, and then allow franchisers to develop that. Like, as I remember in Bangladesh, we have RFL company, which actually produce this SATO, and through their outlets, actually this became popular. So over to you. Thank you.
Yeah, it's great. I might have just pointed you to the RFL example. So in nearly every country in which SATO manufactures, it's a licensed model where we provide the molds to manufacturing partners who then use their distribution networks to promote and sell our products. And we do a lot of kind of supplementary like marketing and demand generation activities, but it's really leveraging our local partners and their distribution networks to get products out to retail networks. And so I do think what you're describing is our vision for how we can achieve impact at scale is by letting other partners work with our products. And then where SATO comes in is to really ensure kind of that brand equity and help, as I mentioned, kind of consolidate demand and link partners to really sort of help pull products out to these areas.
Okay, Pierre, let me ask then, I think I'd like to bring in Professor Chari. Actually, this is more a comment, then I'll bring in another question related to it. This is from Hima Patel. There are entrepreneurship opportunities and scope in the sanitation sector. Many good examples are there, including India. And also another comment related to India. I think this is more in terms of what Mr. Kumar said earlier. Are there any issues on slippage after ODF? How is India taking it up? What exactly do you mean by saying ODF plus India? So perhaps both of Professor Chari first, maybe would you like to speak about certain partnerships, perhaps with corporates that have been helpful with your campaign? Then I might ask Mr. Kumar to comment as well. Professor Chari?
Yeah. So as I said, we have established a very vibrant innovation ecosystem called WASH Innovation Hub, wherein we are partnering with a number of interesting partners. For example, water.org, which is a global foundation, is actually one of our key partners to finance innovations in inclusive sanitation. Likewise, we have a partnership with Reckitt. Reckitt is one of the key partners in promoting sanitation worker safety and innovation. So the whole ecosystem is evolving, particularly involving small and medium scale companies and startups, is primarily through partnerships. And we have a very interesting dynamic examples of how these partnerships are enabling what you call accelerated movement of inclusive sanitation. I would be very happy to share some of these examples through our website is available, but also people can reach out to us and we will be happy to share. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Chari. Mr. Kumar, if you're still there, would you like to comment?
Yes. Thank you.
Question?
The ODF was actually for open defecation free, and then ODF plus is actually going beyond that for liquid and solid liquid waste management systems in the country. So as of now, we have 2.96 lakh villages declared as ODF plus, which is a very significant number. Second, somebody was asking about the slippage part in the ODF. Yes, See, it is a continuous process. We have to have awareness building and the engagement of people constantly involved, and ensure that the services are rendered to them. Because if the services like taking away the sludge and all is not taken up, probably then they may have a tendency to slip back. But having realized the importance of good sanitation, having seen that better sanitation facilities have improved their health and cut the cost of medicines and etc., the waterborne diseases, etc., people are willing, more and more willingly come forward for maintenance of sanitation. And very high level of campaign, right from the top, the Prime Minister level, who speaks about the toilets, makes people and more part of this program.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Kumar. All right, I think we're doing quite well with time, so I'll just bring up, there are a lot of comments coming into the chat, not specifically questions, but perhaps I'll read this one, interesting, and maybe some of our panelists can comment. This is from Mark Van Loo. Mark says, understandably, there has been a lot of focus on sanitation for city people, but I'd like to draw attention to the rural world. Their number one concern is WASH. This is according to World Bank Survey 2020 Indonesia, and they say loud and clear that they want stand-alone systems that they can build and maintain themselves, not communal systems. So maybe I can bring in Kate once again from your, from the program, from WHO standpoint. Can you share maybe some perspectives or some examples related to this city, focus perhaps city and then rural, from a rural perspective? Kate?
Yes, no,
Or
absolutely. No, that's, of course, we're interested in universal access, so that's urban and rural, and we are seeing these big kind of urban migrations, and so I think rightly a lot of emphasis has gone on urban areas, but we can't forget about rural areas, of course, and the service delivery models there are often, you know, really different. And but when we're talking about kind of low density situations, the types of things that we have traditionally done in sanitation and would have called basic services can actually be safely managed services, because you have kind of sparse populations, you can do kind of quite simple things with pits, and as long as they're you know, you have a good interface between for the toilet, and the containment is kind of clear, and maybe you can just bury and cover that afterwards, then you have a safely managed sanitation service completely on site that rural people can manage themselves, so we don't have to be necessarily, you know, digging it up and taking it away in a truck to a treatment plant and all of that, which, you know, has a kind of expensive and sometimes, you know, adds risk into the chain. So I think we need to be making sure that we're providing what we call at least basic services, and preferably safely managed sanitation services on site in rural areas that are sparsely populated, that can tolerate those services, and making sure we're not doing this ending open defecation and going to an unimproved service, which may be introduce more risk and increase the likelihood that those households are going to slip back to open defecation. I'll stop there.
Thank you very much, Kate. All right, Pierre, any more questions from there? Sorry, I can't see the room.
Yeah, we have one more question. Can you please introduce yourself and your organization and ask the question?
Hello, my name is Marla Smith-Nilsson. I'm with Water First International, based in the United States. And I think I have a quick question. I'm curious about the decentralized wastewater treatment systems that were briefly discussed. Just want details about the model that's being tested. You know, who's paying the capital costs, who's paying for ongoing maintenance, who's responsible for ongoing maintenance and operation of those. If someone that was online presenting could comment on that, that would be really interesting to me.
Well, this is a big question. You know, I know we want to answer that. I'm not a panelist. I could speak about Japan, but maybe a panelist can answer for himself. I don't know.
Professor Cherry or Patrick, would you either?
You wanted Mr. Kumar as well.
Mr. Kumar?
Whoever, okay, whoever, I say.
So just I'll go quickly, and then, so the concept is about polluter pay principle. Whoever is polluting, they pay for both CapEx and OpEx wherever it is feasible, wherever we can demarcate. So in Indian context, some of the places we work, if it is a building, the CapEx and OpEx is paid by the building society or the resident welfare associations. If it is a low income areas, then the public service, it is perceived as a public service. And if it is a public institution like healthcare, schools, the public service delivery. So both the CapEx and OpEx is absorbed by the city authorities. So it all depends on the regulatory framework. In India, the private properties are paid, both CapEx and OpEx is paid by them, the decentralized systems. If it is if it is a cluster-based approach, then it is paid by the public authorities. And if it is, and it's also recovered through taxes. So there are different models of how decentralized sanitation is promoted, and there are very clear business model, cost recovery models, and we would be happy to share with some of them.
Mr. Kumar, did you want to say something to respond as well? Or Patrick?
Well, in the Philippines, we're trying to veer away from decentralized system and to make it more centralized. But how we can do it decentralized basically is that if we will do decentralized, it's more of because of the location, and we will build, but there's still going to be a communal. It's going to be one sewage treatment plant that will provide the service to our catchment area. And we try to have a multiple site instead of one big site because of the geographical reasons, and in order for us to drink the water nearby. And that's how we are planning on making it more affordable actually to our consumers. So we don't need to basically pump this sewage system all the way to hundreds of kilometers away to an area just to treat it and release it back to the environment.
Thank you very much, Patrick. All right, I believe, I think we're now coming towards the end of the session. As we expected, this is a very lively discussion. I learned a lot of information to take in, and there's a lot more information you can find as well online at the organizational websites of our panelists. And on the chat, I believe there is a link there to some helpful videos from ADBI that you can look at for more information. So at this point, I'd like to just ask one quick question to go through everyone, just to wrap up the session. In one word or one quick sentence, how would you describe the future of, what will it take for us to go beyond business as usual for sanitation innovation in Asia Pacific, which is the title of our session, right? Just one word or one phrase, a key perhaps action point that we must do in order to achieve this business as usual. So let's start with Kate.
I would say resilience and management, safely managed. The managed part is so key in there. Can I just add one little thing before about when I was talking about the rural thing? I didn't want to leave you with the impression that we should leave rural sanitation entirely in the hands of households. That's absolutely critical that local government plays their role in generating demand and behaviour change and service provision and checking on service quality. So I just wanted to make sure I didn't mislead anybody on my thinking there. Sorry. Next person.
Thank you, Kate. Yes, that synergy is really key. Patrick, I turn it to you now.
What I can say is basically our motto is no one left behind. We have to understand that we are all living together and you cannot live in a bubble. So whatever waste you throw, it's going back to you. And so that's why you cannot leave anyone behind. So it has to be an inclusive framework in order for us all to have a clean environment. That's it.
Well said. Thank you. Professor Chari?
I would put my bets on transformative technologies for inclusive sanitation and associated regulations. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Chari. And probably that segues well to you, Genevieve. Technology. Genevieve, your thoughts?
I think perhaps it's overused, but I would just say partnerships. And I'm just in a moment reflecting on how cool this session is, that we have people from all over the world having this conversation. And I already feel so much opportunity for Lixil to partner with these various organizations because we can't do it alone, and then we're only one piece of this puzzle. And so working together is part of it, partnerships.
Thank you, Genevieve. That's the essence after all. That's why we're all here, right? Working together. So at this point, let me introduce for the closing remarks, Mr. Satoshi Ishii, who is the director of the strategy and partnerships team in the water and urban development sectors group at the Asian Development Bank. Previously, he served as ADB's Vietnam urban water sector focal. He is an environmental engineer and urban sector expert with more than 18 years of experience, including 15 years with development finance institutions. He has designed and managed city water, sanitation, transport, energy, and infrastructure projects around Asia. His area of expertise includes infrastructure finance, climate change mitigation and adaptation, and environmental pollution control and management. Over to you, Satoshi.
Thank you, Missy. I thought you were almost wrapping up, so I have not much to say. First of all, thank you very much. On behalf of ADB, joining this session, a very active discussion. I truly enjoy it, and just take a liberty of being in ADB. I just looking this session as from ADB perspective. I have been constantly thinking what we can do and what is MDB's role in this. And then there are a lot of takeaways. And then so, of course, from the two introductory presentation, and then also thanks to Mitzi for those panel discussion, very active panel discussion. There are several key takeaways, if I may, able to share. First one is, of course, everyone's mentioning about importance of citywide sanitation. Of course, the last bit talk about the rural sanitation, which we don't forget about it for sure. But then this is really a new, one of the new way of approaching the sanitation and ensuring that everyone has access to safe sanitation services. I really like the point that Brian has been making. This is not just building the infrastructure, it's really a service delivery. This is really an important point that we are, ADB has been told sometimes like we are infrastructure bank, we are financing a lot of infrastructure, what about the service delivery? So this is really, resonating to what we are thinking and what I am thinking as well. And then also, Professor Cherry was talking about, bringing this sanitation into the public service. And this is also one of the very important statement for us, because this household connection and last mile, we have been constantly facing and discussing with the government. This is household responsibility, not the government responsibility. So ADB or other MDB maybe has no right to getting into somebody's house. But I think this, we have been really trying to break this wall to reach into the last mile, and then trying to bring in the government continuously working with us on this part. So it's really, the good lesson coming to us. The second point is really then I wanted to mention about the Kate's point. It's really important, the data, and then if we measure those sanitation, reach out and then measure our progress, and those data are really, really important. And then we also understand, we've emphasized on this part, and we have that data has to be, the gender disaggregated, and then, what kind of service has been reaching to who. That's really a key for us. The second point everyone is also mentioning about community engagement is essential to ensure that the solution adopted truly matches the needs of those vulnerability communities. And then we have been talking about, there are a lot of health angle, and then everyone, especially Patrick, and then also DG Kumar has been, mentioning about engaging community is really, really the key for this. And last part, the third part is the bringing in social enterprises, and then the non-government organization are essential players. Especially, I like the Professor Chari's case about this bringing CSO, bringing accountability into the picture. And then those collaboration and partnerships are really needed. We are obviously, for sure, everyone understands that this is not like somebody's job. We have to really join forces and then work together on this. So I also like those part. I'm just trying to going through my notes because there are a lot of the information. As a MDB, of course, we are good at dealing with the government. So of course, one of the messages that what are the regulatory changes that we can bring. We all talk about how to enable environment, and then of course there are good and very nice lessons, or the learning from this India and then also Philippine case that about these environment charges, trying to bring those cost into the the tariffs and then the charge collection. That's something that we also constantly talking about. And then maybe this is more about our conventional or business as usual. We have been continuously having those policy dialogue with our government. But then the second part of enabling environment is really to invite the private sectors, and then also invite those startups and some innovative technology into it. There are still a lot of regulatory barriers that we have to break, and then we understand that MDV alone cannot really deliver all of them. We have to really collaborate with those small, medium service providers, and then our role is like how to bring them in to the picture, and then of course financially, but also the dealing with the government, how to make the process more conducive. So those really are really good lessons. And then, of course, not only this session, I have been talking a lot about, new startups and new ideas and innovations. I'm really excited about, learning all those. And then if you also have some ideas, please just grab me. I just want to have, a good partnership and working together with everyone. So last but not least, thanks to the Japan Sanitation Consortium and also Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and then the Asia and Pacific Water Forum, convened this session together with ADB. I really appreciate it. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Satoshi. A very comprehensive wrap up there. And you've just shown us how there's a lot of work ahead. So good luck to everyone, everybody present here. And thank you for all you do, for continuing your hard work in this regard. So I wish you all well for the rest of the World Water Week. And back to you, Pierre.
Yes, thank you very much, Mitzi. Thank you for your outstanding work, and thank you to all the panelists today for their participation. So this concludes our session for today. I will ask all the on-site participants for a group photo here, and to all the others, I wish you a very good day. Thank you.